Hi guys, let's talk about The Gift of Fear. I love this book. Hence the supplemental lecture. It really is a book report. I've done some pretty shitty book reports in my school history. You know, middle school, I remember doing a book report. I read the first half of the book. I always chose mystery books because you could always say, well, I don't want to talk about the rest of the book because I don't want to spoil the surprise for you. I know. What a stupid-ass cop-out. It's like the teacher didn't see through that, right? But this book, yeah, read clear through. Let's talk about The Gift of Fear by Gavin de Becker. So, Gavin de Becker and Associates. What do we know about Gavin de Becker? Well, Gavin de Becker started this protection agency in Los Angeles in Southern California. And I'll get into it in a couple minutes. But so he's got this protection agency called Gavin de Becker and Associates. Clever name, huh? Let's hear it from de Becker himself. He's got a website, so you can go check it out, right? Our clients have designed this firm. It's built to respond to their needs, and thus it's always growing and changing. We have services today that none of us ever imagined 28 years ago. By the same token, we have resources today that would have been seemed like science fiction back then. So he perceives a need, and I think he's probably familiar with the concept of needs assessment. What do you think? Further, Gavin de Becker and Associates, very unusual firm. Our clients are a wide-ranging group. We've got media figures, government agencies, including the U.S. Marshals Service and the Central Intelligence Agency, media companies, universities, giant corporations, city, police department, cultural figures, religious leaders, champion athletes, right? Politicians, battered women's shelters, which they finance to a huge degree, right? And children's schools. Clients include the world's most famous, but as well the world's most anonymous. So, if an actress is being stalked, what might happen? The actress, her manager, her agent, whoever might contact de Becker Associates and they'll do a threat assessment. They want to determine, is this threat genuine, is this threat serious, and what needs to be done about it. So this is right up their alley, and this is what some of their initial their work is branched out tremendously, but that's some of the initial things that they did. So, this threat assessment, right, is offered by de Becker and Associates, protective services, training services. So we can assess the threat, we can provide protection, or provide training, or both as it's warranted. Now, here's something I want to say about de Becker right now that I think is just oh so amazing and so cool. De Becker is not some kind of master's level PhD researcher, etc. De Becker is a man who grew up in an abusive household. De Becker is a man who watched as a child his mother shoot his father. This is real to de Becker, and he's come upon this. He's built this process. He's built this business on the basis of his own desire and the basis of him perceiving a need that that someone should be doing this. So I think it's refreshing to not be dealing with an academic, but dealing with someone who's just been boots on the ground. Sure, much of the evidence is anecdotal, and I know what all us empiricists say about that, but the older I get, I mean, I love empiricism, don't get me wrong, but the anecdotal efforts, I think, can be extremely important as well, so I won't throw them out. The book, The Gift of Fear, then, let's take it, and I teach psychology of emotion. Emotion is my research area, so I'm going to give you that kind of background for an endorsement on this book. Let's talk about The Gift of Fear then. Well, the premise. The premise is we have a pretty good system for detecting threat in our brain. And we know that that's largely, most centrally, the amygdala, with many components that feed towards it. But we constantly talk ourselves out of the cautionary messages that the system sends us. And to the extent we believe in a safe society, we believe that things are good, things are copacetic, I haven't used that word in a good long time, right? That we try to talk ourselves out of fear. No one wants to live in a constant state of fear, right? And often we're told that fear is bad and we should ignore fear or talk ourselves out of fear. This is kind of a cultural component, right? So, but the fear response system is adaptive, and it's been with us for hundreds of thousands of years, longer than that. It's been with us since the beginning, our beginnings as a species, and it's present in so many ancestral species, if you will. It is highly adaptable. So, intuition is remarkably accurate, yet we often ignore it. And there is some empirical support. I think of Nalini Ambady, who talks about thin slice judgments, right? And has built a portion of her academic career on the exploration and the empirical demonstration that intuition can be quite accurate. It can also be fooled, so let's not, put intuition up there as the ultimate. But it is a tool in our toolkit, right? So let's take an example here, and what Becker is saying now is, and I once we leave the basic premise, now Becker will move into examples, things that we should become cautious about as they begin to occur. And this is part of the training, if you will, obviously in book form. Forced teaming. So sometimes an attacker, someone who wants to attack us, might use this process called forced teaming, this technique. What's it designed to do? Well, it's used to foster perception of common fate. So what I'm doing as a stranger, if I engage in forced teaming, is what I'm doing, I'm no longer a stranger, I'm now a partner in this brief slice of life with you. We're sharing a common fate, and as such, we've been bonded together, bound together, we've been teamed together, if you will. So, and listen to the language, and one area I'd love to study, although there's not time, is psycholinguistics. I'm a firm believer that words have meaning, that words are typically chosen non-consciously. We don't consciously elaborate to ourselves before we speak on everything we're going to say. Speech largely is a non-conscious process, right, in the words chosen. So, words, I believe, can be very revealing in most cases. So when someone that you have just met, a stranger, what have you, is starting to use terms like both of us, it's like, what us? There ain't no frickin' us. I don't even know who you are. I don't necessarily even know your name, right? Or maybe you've given me your name to increase the sense of familiarity, but they ain't know us, buddy, right? Got to get tough on this. You got to be critical. You got to be kind of a doubting Thomas in these regards. How are we going to handle this? Handle what? And again, where the hell is this we coming from? Right? Now we've done it. And what Becker is going to do in this book is give you an example of an actual case where these terms were used in preparation for an attack. So it's got huge anecdotal power, and it makes it an interesting read as well. I mean, it's scary, no two ways about it, but it's a well-written book, right? But it's used to reduce social boundaries. People are hesitant to refuse a sense of partnership. And look, I'm asking you guys to work in teams all the time, so in certain respects, we're kind of creating a culture that increasingly pushes on you the use of teams. And now when someone offers you the idea that you're in a team, well, culture might have made you more willing to accept that offer, right? So if someone decides to help you with the groceries, right, unsolicited, and now now we've done it because we locked ourselves out of the car or something. Well, no, we haven't done anything. So another example: charm, designed to compel or control by allure or attraction. Now, is that a definition that you had previously considered? I want you to think about a cartoon. This is a cartoon that I watched as a child. It's a horrible stereotype. But what we see is a dark-skinned man in a cloth, right, with a turban, and he's got a flute, and in front of him is a basket. And what is in that basket in this cartoon stereotype? Well, it is a cobra. And what he's going to do is he's going to play his flute, and he's going to go do 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 do, and the cobra's going to come up, and the cobra's going to sit there, and the cobra's going to dance, etc., and be under the man's control because he's charming the cobra. He's a snake charmer. He's going to charm the cobra with the use of this magic flute, if you will. Well, note that says that charm is better thought of a verb, and he is charming the snake. And what is he charming the snake to do? The cobra could kill him in an instant. But he's charming the cobra to do something other than is the cobra's nature. So if you're being charmed, you are being manipulated to do something that is not natural for you. That is charm as a manipulation. So I'm talking about it as a verb. A person who's charming is a person who uses charm to manipulate others to get their way. So I'm really going to challenge you to start thinking in terms of charm as not a positive quality, but as a negative quality. That is the application of techniques that manipulate you to do something that you normally wouldn't do. And remember, of the 20 items listed for psychopathy, charm is one of those, and one of the highest on the list. So it's not that this person is charming. Let's not go the adjective route. This person is trying to charm me. Let's stick it to the verb route, right? And why would it be necessary to charm someone if it's something they want to do anyway? Another example, too many details. When people are being honest, they have little reason to think that people will doubt them. But if I'm being dishonest, then there's going to be subconscious, non-conscious processes that go, I really got to sell this shit because they're not likely to believe me because I know I'm lying. So I might then overdo it and supply too many details. Now we'll talk about lie detection coming up pretty quickly in this course. So there's a lot of perspectives on this, but when people are lying, they doubt themselves, and they'll often supply details in an attempt to convince both themselves and the target of the lies. Details distract. They often put us out of touch with the actual context. So really the core issue is right here, but now I'm shooting out all these details, and now my poor victim is becoming distracted. So people who lie often then just provide this plethora of information so that we can't ever get to the core issue, and after a while, you've probably experienced this before, oh my God, just shut up because I can't even think anymore. Another example, typecasting. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to label you somewhat negatively, which is going to prompt you to demonstrate that I wasn't correct. So, labeling the victim in this slightly critical way. Let's suppose that we're in a bar. And I come up to you and I say, I'd offer to buy you a drink, but looking at you, you're probably too stuck up to accept the drink from me. And now you have to demonstrate, you might be motivated to demonstrate that, no, I'll have a drink with you. I'm not like that, right? So it compels the victim to prove the critical opinion is not accurate, and again, thus trying to manipulate one into a behavior that they necessarily wouldn't engaged in. And so the book goes on with examples, and the examples are freaking amazing in the book. Another is loan sharking. Great term, right? Offer assistance or a favor. Here, let me help you with that. Or let me buy you a drink. And then this is a mechanism that encourages you to repay the favor. Okay? And we've already talked about that in the previous lecture, right? And yet another, the unsolicited promise. I'll just put this stuff down and go, I promise. So let's suppose you're outside your apartment building, and many of you guys probably live in apartment buildings, maybe not now during COVID, but, and the apartment building has a locking door. And you're sitting there struggling with all these groceries, and we have an attacker who's been observing this door, waiting for someone in your situation, right? And they see you struggling, and you say, hey, let me give you some help, right? And you say, okay, so you hand them a bag of groceries so you can get your key and unlock the door. And they say, well, I'll help you. I'll just carry this up, and as soon as I carry it up, I promise I'll leave. And then, but anytime you hear that word promise, especially from someone who's basically a stranger, you say, why is this person promising me anything? Why is it necessary to promise? How did we get into this situation where they're making or asking me to accept their promise, right? So why are they trying to convince me? And this should be a red flag. So, see, with any of these techniques, if you feel the hair on the back of your neck starting to stick up, if you're starting to feel the EBGBs, then you need to pay attention to that shit. And that's the whole premise. It's the gift of fear. And if you ignore the gift of fear, then, you're making sacrifices in your potential successful adaptation to a threatening world. One final technique, discounting the word no. Okay? Being talked out of a no response is equivalent to yielding control. And if you say no, then mean no. Don't allow yourself to be talked out of no. Because if you allow yourself to be talked out of no, what you're then saying to the person is, my no's do not count as no's. My no's count as work a little harder, talk me out of the no, and you'll get what you want. No means no. Okay? Now, this is designed towards potential victims. Let me explain this, and I'm going to be stereotypical here for a minute. Guys, how many times have you been told don't take no for an answer? As a sales technique, right? Don't take no for an answer. Continue. Persist. Persistence is good. Don't take no for an answer. So often men are trained from the time they're boys not to take no for an answer. Guess what? Yes, take no for an answer. Okay? When we go back on our no, when we say no, but then we go back on it, it opens negotiations for what is okay. You said no because it wasn't okay. But now, if you're going to back off your no, what you're saying is, I'm willing to negotiate what is okay. The line I drew in the sand no longer applies. We're now going to create a new line. And I'm going to incrementally be moved into a position where I never wanted to go. Right? This also signals vulnerability, exactly what the predator needs to know to participate in the task. So the messages of intuition, what do you know? If you got nagging feelings, and this is DeBecker's list, right? You got persistent thoughts. If, you're engaging in humor, right, but especially dark humor, we'll get to that in a minute, wonder, what is going on here? Why is this person saying this to me? If you feel anxious, if you feel curious about the what's so, which is associated to wonder perhaps, if you have a hunch that this is not good, right? If you have gut feelings, doubt, hesitation, suspicion, apprehension, fear, pay attention to them and start looking for evidence. I'm not saying that these are necessarily correct. Let me say that differently. These are sensations. These are sensations that are correct. They're not correct or incorrect. They're simply sensations. What's causing those sensations may have strong evidence to support it or may not. So let's get back to that. But if I'm experiencing these feelings, I want more information. And I'm really going to become increasingly unwilling to agree with the person who's causing these feelings in me. And I want to create some distance, because distance is one of the primary ways that we remain safe. Okay? So, dark humor, let's think about this. This is an anecdotal example. This one's pretty damn potent. I'm going to go back to my office before the bomb goes off, as Taylor leaves the mail room receiving an unsolicited package. Well, Murley opens the package and it explodes, killing him. And yes, the Unabomber struck again. Often when we're engaging in this dark humor, it is the non-conscious communicating a very real possibility that things are about to go very poorly. So let's learn to trust our guts. Let's learn to use our guts as a source of information that causes us to seek additional information. Right, Penelope? Are you getting tired? Huh? No, these guys have a gift of fear, and they pay attention to it. When they're afraid, they engage in a constellation of reactions. They freeze, they flee, they fight. That's the 3 F's that are associated with fear. You want to hear more about that? Come visit me in Psych of Emotion, right? And we'll talk about that. But bottom line, these are adaptive mechanisms, and to ignore them can cause disastrous consequences. So that's all I got to say about the gift of fear. I recommend the book, obviously. By now you probably picked up on that. Have a great day, and we're going to come back to Lecture 7 at some point in time here. From me, from Penelope, bye-bye, huh?